Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got a breaking news report coming out for the U.S., and today I have information to share with you regarding U.S. President Donald Trump, as it is now confirmed that Trump will be asking Europe to pressure Russia alone to stop its war against Ukraine. Let's check out this new report here on your screen. Trump urges Europe to stop buying Russian oil and to pressure China. Trump told a meeting of world leaders Thursday that Europe must stop purchasing Russian oil and put economic pressure on China to try to bring about an end to the war in Ukraine. Okay, so huge update today, and we actually heard this story coming out over the last day or so. Mainstream news was reporting that Trump was thinking about urging European leaders to put pressure onto Russia by cutting off the purchases of Russian oil and gas, and then on top of that, sanctioning China for purchasing Russian oil. Now, let me know if you think this is going to be a good strategy here, but we have heard this already. And on top of that, Trump has not really put a whole lot of action towards Russia. We've seen for weeks now he's really been delaying any type of action directly from the United States. All we've really seen for the most part is the U.S. putting tariffs onto India, which has affected Russia's operations with their oil and gas industry somewhat, but not enough to put an end to this war. So let me know how you feel on that. We're going to talk more about this story today and discuss it together. And also, we have reports today that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has also held a press conference in Paris today, speaking about security guarantees for Ukraine. This was at the Coalition of the Willing Summit at the Elysee Palace in Paris. We're going to be discussing some of the statements he made today. So I've got several things I want to cover with you. We also have some updates to share with you on some other stories we've been discussing throughout today and over the last few days. So let's go ahead and jump into this. I want to show you guys this report real quick, talking about Trump urging EU leaders. Let's talk about this on Ukrainska Pravda real quick. This is a mainstream news outlet out of Ukraine. It says Trump urges EU to stop buying Russian oil and call with coalition of the willing. This coming out today, September 4th, 2025. And yeah, that's allegedly when Trump told EU leaders about this. We knew that during the coalition of the willing meeting, after they had finished, they had made a phone call with Trump. This is some of the big news coming out from that phone call today. And it says right here, U.S. President Donald Trump told European leaders on Thursday, September 4th, that Europe must stop purchasing Russian oil, which he said helps Moscow finance its war against Ukraine. The source today was from Reuters, a mainstream news outlet, citing a White House official after a coalition of the willing meeting, as reported by European Pravda. The details says here, Trump joined a phone call of the coalition of the willing chaired by French President Emmanuel Macron. And it says, quote, President Macron and European leaders called President Trump into their coalition of the willing meeting. President Trump emphasized that Europe must stop purchasing Russian oil that is funding the war, as Russia received 1.1 billion euros in fuel sales from the EU in 1 year, the official said. Trump also emphasized that European leaders must place economic pressure on China for funding Russia's war efforts, the official added. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed this during a press conference with Macron. And it finally says here, quote, Trump is very unhappy with Russian oil being purchased by Europe, he said, mentioning Slovakia and Hungary in this context. So yeah, we know two major EU countries that are very pro-Russian. Slovakia and Hungary are still purchasing oil through Russia right now through the Druzhba oil pipeline. We've also seen Ukraine striking that pipeline multiple times, trying to cut off the oil flows over to these nations. So now we've got Trump today coming out, calling out Slovakia and Hungary, especially for these purchases of Russian oil. And it looks like they want Europe to stop purchasing oil altogether from Russia, which obviously is fueling Russia's war efforts. We know that their fuel sales or oil sales is really helping out Russia to continue the invasion into Ukraine. So this is a pretty huge move. You guys let me know how you feel on this down below in the comments. But now we're going to jump on over to X. I've got a few things I want to share with you guys over here as well. So we'll start off here with the Kiev Post. Putin will use his visit to China as a mandate to continue the war, says Zelensky. More statements from Zelensky also. A strong and large Ukrainian army will be the foundation of long-term security guarantees that will last for decades. 26 countries have agreed to provide security guarantees to Ukraine. He discussed with Trump how sanctions can deprive Russia of resources necessary to continue the war. Ukraine will purchase air defense systems from the U.S. as part of these security guarantees. Allied military presence will be established in Ukraine in the air at sea and on land. Okay, so huge statements right here. Lots of talk about security guarantees for Ukraine, talking about their army, that it needs to be strong at large. They are not going to decrease the size of their army. They're also going to continue weapon flows into Ukraine if this war ends. Talks here about 26 different countries apparently providing security guarantees to Ukraine. That's huge and very good news there. He also talked with Trump about sanctions, and I'm sure Trump agrees that sanctions are needed, and that's why he's calling on Europe to do this. Clearly, the U.S. does not want to do it directly. Also talks about purchasing air defense systems. That's most likely Patriot air defense systems from the U.S. We know Ukraine is working on getting as many of those as possible, but right now the issue is supply. There's not very many available. And finally, talking about allied military presence. So we're still hearing troops are going to be on the ground inside of Ukraine. We just don't know how many yet. I do have a report on an estimation of how many possibly could be deployed to Ukraine, but that number could change. This was a picture of Zelensky today speaking at this conference in Paris. Okay, we got more information now from Bliskovka. Trump is very unhappy that European countries are buying Russian oil, says Zelensky. This refers in particular to Hungary and Slovakia, which complained to the American president about Ukraine's attacks on the Russian energy sector. And this is what he said, quote, "I'm glad that today the United States is absolutely openly saying that these countries are helping the Russian war machine," the president said. Yeah, I mean, that's huge, guys. This was him right here speaking, by the way. This is the video. I'll go ahead and let it roll. But yeah, he stated that he's very happy that Trump is showing support for Ukraine and putting pressure on especially Slovakia and Hungary, who openly is just inviting Russia to send oil flows into their nation, while they know at the same time this money that they're giving over to Russia is allowing them to kill people inside of Ukraine. Okay, many innocent civilians are killed in drone and missile attacks repeatedly. And Slovakia and Hungary are completely complicit in that, obviously, right? So, obviously, a lot of other nations still might be getting oil from Russia as well. So, they're trying to cut that off completely. Let's see if Europe can do that. Now, for Bliskovka, Zelensky commented on Putin's offer to meet in Moscow. Says, quote, "If you want there to be no meeting, you have to invite me to Moscow. I think that Russia has started talking about a meeting, which is good, but so far we do not see their desire to end the war. And adult leaders should come out of a meeting of this level with some kind of result, preferably the end of the war." So this was also him speaking here, stating this, that clearly, Russia does not want to hold a meeting. That's great that Russia's saying, "Hey, come to Moscow and meet Vladimir Putin." But at the same time, we know that Zelensky is not going to go to Moscow, so they need to meet somewhere else. There's been numerous different venues that have been approved for a good place for Zelensky and Putin to meet, and still Putin does not want to meet Zelensky anywhere. So far, only in Moscow. So it looks like no meeting is going to be planned or scheduled for right now. Don't expect that to happen. Next, from Military News UA, we are ready. We have a political and military proposal on the table from 35 leaders on security guarantees for Ukraine, says the French President Macron. And it says his theses: no restrictions on the size of the Ukrainian army and the restoration of the army. 26 countries are ready to send a contingent to Ukraine or contribute means in support to support peacekeepers in the sky and at sea. In the coming weeks, we will determine the role of the U.S. in these processes. There will be contacts between Russians and Americans. So we know about this information right here. But talking about the U.S. getting involved, okay, so we don't know to what capacity just yet the U.S. will be involved in terms of security guarantees for Ukraine. We have heard some information floating around, even from Trump, that apparently they will provide some sort of air support. We just don't know exactly what they're going to do yet. So that's kind of what he's talking about, that within the coming weeks, they will determine the role of the U.S. Being involved. Then finally, there will be contacts between the Russians and the Americans. So the Russians and Americans will be communicating as these security guarantees get rolled out for Ukraine. Now, Vice Grad 24 breaking, Macron says that the Europeans and Americans have agreed to place new sanctions on Russia if Putin continues to refuse to negotiate a peace deal with Ukraine. Okay, that was another thing he stated today. The 19th package of sanctions from the EU is getting prepared right now, and if we do not see Russia engaging in peace talks with Ukraine, those sanctions will be rolling out probably sometime in the next couple weeks. All right, now for Military News UA, it says 60 to 70% of all weapons used in the war now are produced in Ukraine, says Macron. According to the French president, production is taking place in close cooperation with Western allies. So, very big news right here now. We're hearing that 60 to 70% of all the weapons that Ukraine is using in this war is now produced inside of their territory domestically. That is absolutely massive. We heard at one point a few months back that Ukraine was at like 50% capacity. 50% of the weapons they're using were built inside of Ukraine. So just imagine, another year from now, 2 years from now, if this war were to continue, Ukraine will only get stronger, only become more independent, and they're going to have greater capabilities. It's only going to expand for Ukraine. This is really good numbers to hear these kinds of things coming out. This was reported by Macron today. Now, Max 25, Macron says a new format for protecting the skies may appear, but a signal from the U.S. is needed. Ukraine's membership in the EU has been put into a separate point of security guarantees. So it looks like they're still kind of discussing the whole EU accession for Ukraine. Is Ukraine going to get into the EU sometime soon? There was some talk that Moldova and Ukraine might start to get integrated into the EU at some point in the near future, but we're gonna have to wait for further action on that. Aside from that, new format for protecting the skies may appear, and we have been hearing that the U.S. along with its allies are thinking about closing the skies inside of Ukraine. And starting with like Lviv, they actually want to start having commercial flights coming back into Ukraine. They might start with Lviv on the western side and move further into Ukraine as this plan progresses. But we'll have to see if Ukraine is going to get some sort of no-fly zone, at least on the western side of Ukraine. It's possible they might do that, but we're not sure yet. Now for military news UA again, it says 25 to 30,000 military personnel from partner countries are planned to be sent to Ukraine, but the figure may still change, according to Radio Svoboda. So Radio Svoboda is a mainstream news outlet out of Ukraine, and it says at the same time, President Zelensky stated that soldiers will be on the ground, at sea, and in the air. So you guys can let me know what you think. Do you think we're going to get 25 to 30,000 military troops on the ground? These are possibly NATO troops inside of Ukraine after this war ends. We already know numerous countries are willing to do that. But there has been reports coming out that possibly only maybe 6 to 10,000 EU troops could be deployed into Ukraine, as there's a lot of pushback in certain nations. Some are willing to do it, some are not. We know for sure Germany is one of those nations not willing to do that. I think Italy came out today. Their Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, confirmed they will not be sending troops to Ukraine. So there's some that are open to doing it, some that are not. So this number really could fluctuate, but that's what Radio Svoboda is reporting today. Possibly 25 to 30,000. That seems to be the high end of the numbers, the amount of troops that could be sent to Ukraine. And then in terms of what they're going to be doing there, where they're going to be stationed, nobody really knows yet. We're going to have to wait for the official plan when it comes out. Now from Prune 60, Russia. Putin warns that Russia faces a gas shortage. Is it all going according to plan? So look at this report today. This was on the Moscow Times. Putin warns that Russia faces a gas shortage. So apparently Vladimir Putin is actually openly acknowledging now that Russia is facing a gas shortage. We've been knowing for weeks now that lots of gas stations inside of Russia, even occupied regions of Ukraine, multiple regions, Donetsk region, Luhansk region, even down in Kherson and down in Crimea also, just really started to experience the effects of Ukraine striking all these oil refineries, and lots of gas stations are running out of fuel right now. This crisis is continuing to spread inside of Russia, even in Russia's far east, over near Vladivostok, the Primorsky Krai region. So it's getting worse and worse to the point where Putin actually had to come out and acknowledge to the people of Russia that they are short on gas right now. So let me know how you feel on that one. Now from Visioner, it says Russia's Minister of Economic Development, Maxim Reshetnikov, admitted that the Russian economy has reached a point where it will no longer grow. According to Reshetnikov, the baseline growth forecast will be revised further downward. Stagnation is setting in much earlier than expected. So lots and lots of talk today about the Russian economy, that it is stagnating right now. There's apparently by the end of this year going to be no growth with the GDP inside of Russia. Possibly could it even turn negative? We'll have to see what's going to happen, but we're talking about stagnation now, where their economy is not growing. So this is another worsening sign of the Russian economy that we continue to see. It is falling apart over there. At the same time, Vladimir Putin still continues this war inside of Ukraine, risking the entire economy of Russia could come down in shambles here at any moment, yet they still want to try to take over Ukraine. Now, Special Kherson Cat, 2 drones flew into Polish airspace but were not shot down, as according to Polish officials, they pose no danger. This happened on the night of September 3rd, 2025. The incident occurred as Russia launched a large scale wave of drone and missile strikes on western and central Ukraine, likely causing the drones to cross into Poland. Just recently, on the 20th of August 2025, another Russian Shahed violated Polish airspace and exploded more than 100 kilometers from the border. Here's a report today from Reuters. Poland says two drones enter airspace, caused no damage. Yeah, let me know if you think that these drones didn't cause any damage. That's what the authorities said out of Poland. But once again, two times over the past couple weeks, Poland reporting Russian drones crashing inside of their territory. Two more entered in just 2 nights ago. We talked about this attack yesterday inside of Ukraine. Ukraine was attacked by more than 500 drones, and somewhere around 20 or 30 missiles, I believe, were being fired. So during that time, some of these drones crossed into Poland and ended up crashing over there. And once again, we're seeing this. And at one point, is NATO going to respond? I mean, thankfully, according to these reports, nobody has been harmed in these attacks from these drones entering into NATO territory, but very dangerous considering that, could NATO enact Article 5 if somebody were to be injured, possibly even killed in one of these strikes? So just an update out of Poland today. Now, military news UA, U.S. to cut hundreds of millions of dollars in defense funding for European countries bordering Russia, according to the Financial Times. Pentagon officials told European diplomats last week that the U.S. would no longer fund military training and equipment programs in Eastern countries, European countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are among the main recipients of this aid. What a wild story coming out today from the Financial Times. I was not expecting this, but at the same time, maybe some of you are. We have been hearing that the Trump administration is trying to pull away support for European nations, especially on the Eastern Front. But we just had Karl Nawrocki, the Polish president, in the U.S. just yesterday, I believe, meeting with Trump at the White House, and he actually told him they're not planning to ever pull their forces out of Poland. They want to keep Poland strong. Possibly they might even deploy more troops over there. So there was no signs they were planning to, pull any troops away or any funding or anything like that from Poland, at least from what I saw. But apparently, according to the Financial Times today, some of these Baltic nations over here very close to Russia, which are at risk of possibly being attacked, that includes Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, there's funding that's going to be pulled away for military training and equipment programs at some of these nations over here. So that is not good news to hear. This was a new report just breaking today, just an hour or two just before I started to record this for you guys. So that is not good to hear. That's another step that we're hearing from the Trump administration, that they're going to slowly start pulling support away from some of these critical nations that could be attacked by Russia in the future, right on the border of their territory. So crazy updates, guys. Just wanted to bring some news to you and let you know what's going on over here in this war between Ukraine and Russia, and talk about some of these security guarantees today and what the Trump administration is planning to do to try to pressure Russia to end this war against Ukraine. So I want to thank you guys very much for being here. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.